Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Today's reciters are Shakshi Mataji in Sanskrit and Sriji Kishori Mataji in English from Canto 3, Chapter 8, verses 1 to 17. Shakshi Mataji, when you're ready, please start with invocation. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We start now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maitreya Uvacha. Sat Sevaniyo Pata Purvansho Yallo Kapalo Bhagvat Pradanaha Babu Viteha Jita Kirtimalam Pade Pade Nu Yasya Bhikshanam.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, could you scroll up a bit, please? Thank you. The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidura, "The royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. You are also born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment."
Soham Nunam Shulla Sukhaya Dukkham Mahad Gatanam Viramaya Tasya Pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam Yadaha Sakshad Bhagavan Rishibhyah.
Let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavata Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure.
Asinam Urvyam Bhagavanta Atyam Sankarshanam Devam Akunta Sattvam Vivitsavastatvam Atah Parasya Kumara Mukhya Munayo Nuvaprushchan.
Some time ago, being inquisitive to know, Sanat Kumara, the chief of the boy saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you about the truths regarding Vasudev, the Supreme, from Lord Sankarshana, who is seated at the bottom of the universe.
Swam eva dishnyam bahumanayantam Yatva Sudeva Bidanam Amantanti Pratyagadritaksham Abuja Koshama Ishat Unmelayantam Vibhudodayaya.
At that time, Lord Sankarshana was meditating upon his Supreme Lord, whom the learned esteem as Lord Vasudev, but for the sake of the advancement of the great learned sages, he slightly opened his lotus-like eyes and began to speak.
Swadurnya Uttara Draha Swajata Kalapair Upsprushanta Charanopadanam Padmam Yat Archantya Hirajakanyaha Sapremanana Balibhirvararthaha.
The sages came from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges, and therefore the hair on their heads was wet. They touched the lotus feet of the Lord, which were worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the serpent king when they desire good husbands.
मुहुर्गृणन्तो वचसानुराग स्खलात् पदेनास्य कृतानि तज्ज्ञाः किरीटसाहस्म मणिप्रवेक प्रद्योतितो दाम फणासहस्रम्.
The four Kumaras, headed by Sanat Kumara, who all knew the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, glorified the Lord in rhythmic accents, with selected words full of affection and love. At that time, Lord Sankarsana, with his thousands of raised hoods, began to radiate an effulgence from the glowing stones on his head.
प्रोक्तं किलेते भगवतमेन निवृत्तधर्माभिरताय तेन सनन्तकुमाराय स चाह पृष्टः साङ्ख्यायनायाङ्ग द्रुतव्रताय.
Lord Sankarsana thus spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumara, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumara also, in his turn, when inquired of by Sankyayana Muni, explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarsana.
साङ्ख्यायन पारमहंस्य मुख्यो विवक्षणमाणो भगवत् विभूतिः जगात्सोऽस्मत् गुरुवये नविताय पराशरायाथ बृहस्पतेश्च.
The great sage Sankayana was the chief amongst the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master Parasara and Brahaspati both heard him.
प्रोवाच मह्यं सदयालुरुक्तो मुनिः पुलस्तेन पुराणम् अद्यं सोऽहं तवेतत् कथयामि वत्स श्रद्धालवे नित्यमनुव्रताय.
The great sage Parashara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulastya, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower.
उदालुप्तं विश्वम् इदं तदासीत् यन्निद्रायामिलितन्द्रन् न्यमिलियत् अहीन्द्रतल्पे दिशयान एकः कृतक्षणः स्वमरतो निरीह.
Sorry, could someone mute the background noise, please? Thank you. At that time, when the three worlds were submerged in water, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu was alone, lying on his bedstead, the great snake Ananta. And although he appeared to be in slumber in his own eternal potency, free from the action of the external energy, his eyes were not completely closed.
सोनन्त शरीरेरर्पित भूत सूक्ष्म कालात्मिकां शक्तिम् उदीरयाणः उवास तस्मिन् सलिले पदे स्वे यथा नलो दारुणीरुद्धवीर्यः
Just like the strength of fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all the living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in the self-invigorated energy called Kala.
चतुर्युगानं च सहस्रम् अप्सु स्वपन् स्वयोदीरितया स्वशक्त्या कालाख्यया साधितकर्मतन्त्रो लोकान् अपि तन् ददृशे स्वदेहे.
The Lord lay down for 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas in his internal potency, and by his external strength he appeared to be sleeping within the water. When the living entities were coming out for further development of their fruitive activities, actuated by the energy called Kala Shakti, he saw his transcendental body as bluish.
तस्यार्थ सूक्ष्मा विनिविष्टदृष्टेर् अन्तर्गतोऽर्थो रजसा तनीयान् गुणेन कालानुगतेन वितः सुष्यंस्तदाभिद्यतनाभिदेशात्.
The subtle subject matter of creation on which the Lord's attention was fixed was agitated by the material mode of passion, and thus the subtle form of creation pierced through his abdomen.
सपद्मकोशः सहसोदशिष्ठत् कालेन कर्म प्रतिबोधनेन स्वरोचिषा तत्सलिलं विशालं विद्योतयनर्क इवात्मयोनिः.
Piercing through piercing through the sum total form of the fruitive activity of the living entities took the shape of the bud of a lotus flower generated from the personality of Vishnu, and by his supreme will it illuminated everything like the sun and dried up the vast waters of devastation.
तल्लोकपद्मं स उ एव विष्णुः प्राविशत् सर्वगुणावभासमं तस्मिन् स्वयं वेदमयो विधाता स्वयं भुवं यं स्ववदन्ति सोऽभूत्.
Into the universal lotus flower, Lord Vishnu personally entered as the Supersoul, and when it was thus impregnated with all the modes of material nature, the personality of Vedic wisdom, whom we call the self-born, was generated.
तस्यां च चाम्भोरुह कर्णिकायम् अवस्थितो लोकम् अपश्यमानः परिक्रमं व्योम्नि विवृतनेत्रश्चत्वरि लेभेनुदिशं मुखानि.
Brahma, born out of the lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the world. He therefore circumambulated all of space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions.
तस्माद्युगान्त श्वसनावघर्ण जल्लोर्मि चक्रात् सलिलविरूढम् उपाश्रितः Jamu ul lokatattvam natmanam adhavadit adideva.
Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Sriji, Kishori Mataji, and Shakshi Mataji for your wonderful recitation. Welcome, dear devotees, to tonight's chat session. We continue with our reading and discussion of the 8th chapter of the 3rd canto, a chapter entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Today we will be reading and discussing text number 15 to 19, if I'm not mistaken. So let's recite the Mangala Charanam prayers. Please join me. Be unmuted mics. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasinubhyevach Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vasyacha Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So let me share my screen. So today's text number 15. Talo Kapadmam Sai Huheva Vishnu Pravivisat Sarvagunava Vabhasham Tasmin Swayam Vedamayuvid Hata Swayam Bhuvam Yam Smavadanti Sobat. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, let's do the synonyms too. Tat, that, loka, universal, padmam, lotus flower, sahi, certainly, eva, factually, Vishnu, the Lord, pravi, visat, entered into, sarva, all, guna avabhasham, reservoir of all modes of nature, Tasmin, in which Swayam in person, Vedamaya, the personality of Vedic wisdom, Vidhata, controller of the universe, Swayambhuvam, self-born, Yam, whom, Sma, in the past, Vadanti, to say, Sahi, Adbhut, generated. Into that universal lotus flower, Lord Vishnu personally entered as the Supersoul. And when it was thus impregnated with all of the modes of material nature, the personality of Vedic wisdom, whom we call the self-born, was generated. Purport. The lotus flower is the universal Virat form, or the gigantic form of the Lord in the material world. It becomes amalgamated in the personality of Godhead Vishnu in his abdomen at the time of dissolution. And it becomes manifested at the time of creation. This is due to Garbhodakshai Vishnu, who enters into each of the universes. In this form is the sum total of all the fruitive activities of the living entities, conditioned by material nature. And the first of them, namely Brahma, or the controller of the universe, is generated from this lotus flower. This firstborn living being, unlike all of the others, has no material father, and thus he is called self-born or Swayambhu. He goes to sleep with Narayan at the time of devastation, and when there is another creation, he is born in this way. From this description, we have the conception of three: the gross Virat form, the subtle Hiranyagarbha, and the material creative force, Brahma. So this is something very unique in that we are getting an insight at what happens at the very beginning of creation. This is very unique. There are many speculators in this material world who speculate about how the world first came about. And there are so many speculations that these philosophers or scientists, they can never agree. And they contradict one another. They pick holes in what theories some people put forward. But here we are getting, it's like almost we are looking. How amazing this. We are, and quite detailed description, we are looking at what is happening at the dawn of creation. There's a term Prabhupada used to use, Shastra Chakshus, meaning seeing through the eyes of Shastra. Such events we can't see with these blunt senses. Ata Sri Krishna Namadi na bhavat grayam indriya sevan mukhi jivado swayam evati spurati hadaha. We can't see with these blunt senses. But here we are getting this description. And in this particular verse, there is some discussion about the lotus flower. So the lotus flower is being described here as the universal Virat form, or the gigantic form of the Lord in the material world. How is this so? It is so because according to the Srila Prabhupada's explanation here, this lotus flower appears at the dawn of creation. And when the creation is being wound up every once in the day of Lord Brahma, this lotus flower also goes back into the body of Lord Vishnu, together with all of the living entities. And it is said here that in this form, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, the sum total of all the fruitive activities of the conditions exists of the living entities conditioned by material nature. What does that mean? It means that anything possible that the living entity wants to try to enjoy, because that's the name of fruitive activities. You perform an activity, you get a fruit. This is contained within the Lord, or this is due to the Lord. Just bear with me 1 minute. There's some alarm going off. I want to check it. You know, Charlie, put the alarm off. About that. So from this lotus flower, all of the ingredients, all necessities, the three modes of material nature and so on, is being manifested by the Lord. And the very first born living entity, we're saying born here, but he's known also as unborn, or as the verse says here, what's the name for Lord Brahma? Swayambhuvam. He's self-born because he's not coming from the union of mother and father. So the first living entity, Lord Brahma, is being manifested. And Srila Prabhupada says, because he has no material father, he is called Swayambhu. And he's being described here that he goes to sleep with Narayan at the time of devastation. So we know from our discussion that Lord Brahma, he lives for 1,000 cycles of the 4 kalpas. And at the end of the 1,000 cycle of the 4 kalpas, that's his one day. He goes to rest. And then when the next manifestation comes, is night. There's also Lord Brahma. So this Brahma is, or what's happening here is the at the very beginning. At the very beginning, the dawn of creation. That means Brahma is not even 1 day old yet. So what is interesting, and which I wanted to find out, which I'm not sure, is this only at the beginning of Lord Brahma's 100 years? Or this happens at every time at the end of 1,000 kalpas, cycle of 1,000 kalpas. So if anybody knows that and they want to enlighten us, please feel free. But when I thought about it more deeply, I thought at the end of, at the beginning of each creation, means at the dissolution, that Brahma lives for 100 years. So he goes through this process through every day and every night. That's what it seems to me. But if anybody understands differently, please feel free to share. Text number 16. Tasyam Sachambu Ruhakarnikayam Avashtito Lokam Apas Yamanaha Parikraman Vyomni Virita Netrash Chatvari Lebe Nudisham Mukhani. Tasyam, in that Sa Brahma, Cha and Amba water, Ruah Karnikayam, whirl of the lotus, Avashtita, being situated, Lokam, the world, Apashyamanaha, without being able to see, Parikraman, circumambulating, Vyomi, in space, Vrita Netra, while moving the eyes, Chatvari, 4, Lebe, achieved, Anudisham, in terms of direction, Mukhani, heads. Brahma, born out of the lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the world. He therefore circumambulated all of space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions. So sometimes when we tell people about the secondary creator of the world, his name is Lord Brahma. He's got 4 heads. We get asked the question, why 4 heads? Why has Brahma got 4 heads? So according to Srimad Bhagavatam, and in this verse, that Brahma, when he was born out of the lotus flower, he could not see the world, although he was situated in the world. The world is, right in the center. He therefore circumambulated all of space, and he was surveying left, right, center, front, back. In all 4 directions he was looking. And at that point in time, the Lord decided that Lord Brahma will be better off with 4 heads, so that he can simultaneously look at all 4 directions at the same time. So Bhagavatam is giving us a revelation here. Text number 17. Tasma juganta swasana vagurna jalor bichakra salilad virudham upashrita kanjam ulokatadvam natmanam adavidad adidevaha. Tasmat, from there, Yuga Anta, at the end of the millenniums, Shwasana, the air of devastation, Avagurna, because of movement, Jala, water, Urchakrat, out of the circles of waves, Salilat, from the water, Virudham, situated on them, Upashritaha, having the shelter of Kanjam, lotus flower, you in astonishment, Lokatadvam, the mystery of creation, Na, not, Atmanam, himself, Ada, perfectly, Avidat, could understand, Adidevaha, the first demigod. Translation: Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus or himself. As the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. Purport: Lord Brahma was perplexed about his creation, the lotus and the world, even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium, which is beyond calculation in the solar years of human beings. No one, therefore, can know the mystery of the creation and cosmic manifestation simply by mental speculation. The human being is so limited in his capacity that without the help of the Supreme, he can hardly understand the mystery of the will of the Lord in terms of creation, continuance, and destruction. So here we have Lord Brahma, the first living entity, and he's being described as being perplexed. Why was he perplexed? He couldn't understand what was taking place about creation. He didn't understand why the lotus was there and why he was situated. And he didn't understand the world. So he tried to understand it. And it is said here, 1 millennium. 1 millennium means, millennium generally is 1,000 years. So Lord Brahma lives for 1,000 years, and then his night is another 1,000 years. And that's calculated something like 30 trillion, 100 billion years. It's a figure that's completely beyond our conception. So Lord Brahma, he took such a long time to try to understand what is going on here. And Prabhupada makes the pertinent point that one cannot understand the mystery of creation simply by mental speculation. So that applies to Lord Brahma, it applies to everyone, and it applies to ourselves. We cannot understand these things. They are just, our human intellect is so limited. Our capacity to understand this is so limited. But if Krishna feels he wants us to be merciful to us, we can understand it. So in that sense, it is only the devotees of the Lord, the pure devotees of the Lord, who can understand the nature of creation. Otherwise, creation is such a complex phenomenon. It is very difficult to understand. Like here, even if we look at it, Srimad Bhagavatam is understanding the whole process in very simple languages, in simple stanzas. But even us, we're trying to grasp it. But we may struggle. We may struggle. But if Krishna is merciful upon us, and Krishna's mercy follows the mercy of the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, therefore, in Vaishnav way of life, we do make the attempt to understand. We do read Srimad Bhagavatam. We do make the effort, has been instructed to us. We do make the effort to try to understand it. But at the end of the day, we know that true understanding will only come by the grace of Guru and Krishna. As Prabhupada used to quote, Yasya deve parabhakti, yata deve tato guru. Tasyaiti iti prakashante. Forget the last line. Mahatma, something about Mahatma, where it is said in the Svetashvar Tar Upanishad that only by the combined mercy of Guru and Krishna are all the imports of Vedic knowledge revealed. So Lord Brahma, we can see, he is such a great personality, but he can't understand. And the nature of our position is, every time we take birth in complete ignorance. We come to this world knowing nothing, complete zero. We are complete ignorant. We do not know left from right, right from wrong, day from night. We can't. We just know nothing. Therefore, it is said, Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Malitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances to such a spiritual master. Text number 18. Kaishayo swa aham abjaprishta etat kutovaj vabjam ananyadapshu ashti e adastad yakincha naitad adishtitam yatrasatanubhavyam. Lord Brahma, in his ignorance, contemplated, who am I that I'm situated on top of this lotus? Where from has it sprouted? There must be something downwards, and that from which this lotus has grown must be within the water. Purport. The subject matter of the speculations of Brahma in the beginning regarding the creation of the cosmic manifestation is still a subject matter for mental speculators. The most intelligent man is he who tries to find the cause of his personal existence and that of the whole cosmic creation, and thus tries to find the ultimate cause. If his attempt is properly executed with penances and perseverance, it is sure to be crowned with success. So Prabhupada is reminding us here that human life, an intelligent human being, will try to find out the cause of his existence. Because by finding out the cause of his existence, one can also find out the cause of one's suffering. So Prabhupada is saying the intelligent person will try to find out the ultimate cause. And then Prabhupada is explaining then, how can such a person who wants to find out, how can he be crowned with success? Prabhupada says two things here: penances and perseverance. Now some people may say, just now we spoke about in the last verse that we only get success in understanding creation by getting the mercy of Krishna. But here it is saying we get success by penances and perseverance. So what is it? Is it penances and perseverance that we get success about understanding? Or it's by the mercy of Krishna? So Bhagavatam makes us understand this point. And we see there's so many examples in the Bhagavatam. One typical example is Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj wanted to gain the kingdom, and he knew only the Lord can give him. So penances and perseverance, that is required to attract the mercy of Krishna. Krishna wants to see, even in the Damodar Leela, we know this, 2 fingers too short. We have to be austere. Tapo Divyam, Lord Rishabdev tells his sons, human life is meant for austerity. In one purport, Srila Prabhupada says, an easygoing life and Krishna consciousness don't go well together. It doesn't. We have to perform austerities. We have to be determined. And when Krishna sees, just like he saw Dhruva, was so determined, then he will be merciful. So that is the connection. It's the penances and the perseverance which attracts the mercy of the Lord. And for a devotee, it means, Krishna, I'm ignorant. I can't understand what's going on. Please help me. And through penances and perseverance, we are successful. And text number 19. I'm not reading the Sanskrit now. I'll just do the translation. Brahma, thus contemplating, entered the water through the channel of the stem of the lotus. But in spite of entering the stem and going nearer to the navel of Vishnu, he could not trace out the root. Purport: by dint of one's personal endeavor, one may go nearer to the Lord. But without the Lord's mercy, one cannot reach the ultimate point. Such understanding of the Lord is possible only by devotional service, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 18:55. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvataha. That only, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So through Lord Brahma's situation, through Lord Brahma's experience, there is so much to be learned. There is so much to be learned. And Bhagavatam is describing or going into so much of detail. And Prabhupada is saying, what did Brahma do? He very intelligently thought, if the flower is coming from the lotus must have a source, and that's the root. So he went down the stem. But although he went down the stem, he could not trace out its origin. That is the mystical nature of the Lord. And Prabhupada says here, we can endeavor to go closer to the Lord, but without the Lord's mercy, we can never reach him. This is the big lesson for all of us on the path of bhakti, on the path of wanting to understand Krishna. Everything happens by mercy only. Okay, dear devotees, I shall stop here. If there's any questions or comments or reflections, please speak your mind.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Madhana Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Pranam, Namrata, Jai, all glories Prabhupada.
Prabhuji very beautifully explained as always, Prabhuji. And I think there's such beautiful verses. Prabhuji, I just had some question on Lord Brahma. So is it right to say, Prabhuji, that Lord Brahma in different universes has got more than 4 heads?
That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
There is that pastime where Lord Brahma went to see Krishna in Dwaraka, and Krishna asked which Brahma, and Brahma came, and he was so confused because he was thinking he's the only Brahma. Then Brahma with 10 heads, 100 heads, 1,000 heads came, because his universe is much, much, much more bigger than our universe and much more complex. So there are Brahmas in other universes with many more
Thank you,
heads.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Prabhuji, I wanted to ask a question about the soul. What is point zero of any soul? What is the starting point of any soul? Because as I understand it, we take material birth because I would have rebelled against wanting to enjoy material life. So I would have rebelled against God and said, well, let me do this. And he gave me the freedom to do so. But what is the point zero of any soul before that happens? Where does that soul come from? Was he pure before that?
Yes. So we understand for the soul there's no point zero, because the soul is eternal. Eternal means you can't trace out its origin. It's eternal. It's the whole concept of eternality is difficult for a conditioned soul to understand. But Krishna is eternal, and we are tiny parts and parcels emanating from Krishna. So we are also eternal. And as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor any of the kings on this battlefield. So Krishna says that very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita, that we always existed. So there's no point zero to answer your question, Prabhu. But at some point in time, we developed a different consciousness. But even then, when we return to our original position, although we may have been here for unlimited years, so to speak, even then it'll be like a flash, a blink of the eye. So we make a big deal of how we're suffering in this material world for so long. But once we go back, it was just like a dream, a very short dream. Is that
Okay.
okay, Prabhu?
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. That answered my question. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else with any questions or reflections? No? Then we'll close today's session. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to your service. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Very nice class.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.